I have become very concerned about the shift from what one could argue as a moderate policy around Palestine and recognising a Palestinian state to becoming a little bit more concerned about the shift that is happening, whereby it seems to me that we're moving further and further to the right as a result of the Bondi massacre. That for some reason we start to think that because two crazy men chose to arm themselves and to attack the Jewish community as they have, that somehow that represents a whole swath of people who are either Muslim or Arab. And I think that we need to try and get some of that stuff in perspective rather than take this knee-jerk reaction which has been taken around the world in relation to the way to deal with anti-Semitism. And I've said many, many times, and I'll say it over and over again, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia is simply wrong. Hating, disliking, and making decisions about how we should view those people that are a minority, or anybody for that matter, is something we should abhor. But it seems to be increasing, and we need to be mindful of exactly what's happening. And now I'm going to play a clip from Al Jazeera, which talks about the shift in politics in Israel, which indicates strongly, I think, that there is a shift further and further to the right, even in Israel. They have some statistics to be able to demonstrate just that fact. But I think there is a warning here also, a warning to all of us, that that shift is also likely to take place here, where we start to view Muslims and people of an Arab descent as kind of being, I guess, overall the enemy, without paying heed to the fact that there are many Jewish rabbis who also talk about the destruction and the eradication of Palestinian people, as does Israel, the state, Netanyahu, and many of his right-wing cronies. So we need to be mindful, I think, of all of that. So I'll just play this video for you here, and then I've got a slight clip to have a look at what Sky News is saying about this, which is just horrible. And it just indicates, I think, to me, and maybe to you, where this whole thing is heading. And quite frankly, it scares me.
Now, Israeli society is moving to the extreme right on the issues of Palestine and the Palestinian people. This is evident in popular culture and opinion polls, which reveal overwhelming hostility towards Palestinians. It's also being translated into legislation that singles out and oppresses Palestinians, as Norode explains.
This is dubbed Israel's hip-hop war anthem. Israel's public television service broadcast this one. In Israel, voices horrified by these attitudes are now on the fringe.
Israel now is a fascist state, and I would say a fascist society. Not because everybody is like that, because those are the dominant or the hegemonic stance and policy.
Content that entrenches genocide is trending across social media in Israel. Ordinary Israelis mocking grieving mothers, soldiers parading in the lingerie of Palestinian women, and blowing up a building in Gaza for a gender reveal.
When you occupy other people, when you deny the rights and the liberties of other people, the Palestinian people, eventually it trickles in and erodes your own morality of your own society. Occupation corrupts.
Opinion polls of Jewish Israelis appear to support this view. 62% say soldiers should kill Palestinian fighters even when they don't pose a threat. 60% don't believe soldiers should be investigated for abusing Palestinian detainees. 55% support bombing heavily populated areas to deter Palestinian factions. These opinions translate into new regulations which further discriminate against Palestinians, and where the lines between the mainstream political left and right almost disappeared. Human rights organizations say just in the past 2 years, 30 such laws were adopted and more are on the way. Like a bill introduced by the Jewish Power Party from the governing coalition and the Israel Beiteinu party from the opposition. It proposes the death penalty be mandatory for individuals who kill an Israeli. Amnesty International and others say it will be used exclusively for Palestinians. Observers say in this climate, politicians and society feed each other's extremism. One is vying for votes, the other for affirmation.
And I think that the warning there is that if we're not careful, if we're not going to monitor what governments do and push back against some of the more insane, extreme, knee-jerk responses to the crap that comes out of Israel, and that is certainly emphasised sometimes in policies that Australian governments may care to implement to stamp out anti-Semitism. As much as we can applaud the need to stomp out the terrible hate speech and other attitudes towards Jewish people, and particularly also, I think we mustn't forget the Muslim people. As much as this is important, we must also be mindful of where the shifts are and how they're taking shape and where they're being influenced from. And I'm just going to play a video from Sky News, which to me indicates where the language of the right in Australia is coming from and how this may very well influence the way we view politics and our response to this issue here in this country.
Well, the victims' bodies are barely cold from the Islamic terror attack at Bondi, and there's been a ceasefire in Gaza for more than 2 months. But don't let that stop heartless protesters. Last night, we showed you footage of these pro-Gaza ghouls rallying at Town Hall in Sydney with their Palestinian kafirs and hateful slogans. Now we can show you more of what happened at that protest, where Palestinian activist Sarah Saleh yesterday vowed to continue her calls to globalize the Intifada.
I intend to keep saying, globalize the Intifada and free Palestine.
Absolutely sickening. We've seen what globalize the Intifada looks like. We saw the...
They mean by globalizing the Intifada, they mean that globalizing the resistance towards what's happening in Palestine. So we must get it in context. I think the government's overreached here in Australia, the Min's government, in regard to that statement about the Infidala. So I think that there is an opportunity for us to push back a little bit about this and develop some understandings. And later on in this video, one of the protesters explains just that issue.
The Australianising of the Intifada at Bondi Beach a week ago. And if anyone needs reminding, that phrase is a reference to 2 Palestinian intifadas in the late 1980s and early 2000s, in which more than 1,000 Israelis were killed or injured in horrific terror attacks in the second Intifada alone, committed by Palestinians. So please, spare me whitewashing like this.
The definition of intifada is as a shaking off or as an uprising. So when people say intifada, it's a basic act of us supporting the uprisings of Palestinians.
Seriously. And just check out this obtuse question asked by a reporter at New South Wales Premier Chris Minns's press conference yesterday.
Why are you banning an Arabic word while at the same time say that you don't want to whip up fear and racism against certain people? So can you please explain it?
Its use in common parlance in demonstrations both here and around the world are a call to a global intifada. I mean, that's what it means. Not in the Middle East, not in Israel or Gaza, but here in Sydney, in our streets. No, sorry, I think I'm entitled to get an answer out. And in those circumstances, I do believe it leads to a culture and environment of heightened disunity and an invitation to violence.
It's so refreshing, isn't it? Seeing a leader with actual leadership and moral clarity. But now I want to show you a pro-Palestine activist exploiting the youngest victim, Matilda's death, in her performative protest, dated in this footage online as being from Sunday, the same day Matilda's family was honouring her and other victims at a Jewish community event a week on from the attack.
Who is going to sing for us What a Wonderful World, which was the favourite song of the little 10-year-old girl slaughtered on Bondi Beach last week. So let's all think about that.
So the point I want to make is that Sky News were endeavouring to turn even little Matilda's sad loss into something that it wasn't. And why in the hell they played that? At a Palestinian rally, they were mindful of the loss of this little girl. Why is not that appropriate at a Palestinian rally? Well, it's hard to say where they're coming from most of the time, but I would like to at least acknowledge that there needs to be some changes. There need to be a way of looking at all of this that is different. There needs to be an acknowledgement, I think, that much of what has happened in Australia is shifting and twisting further and further to the right. And that should be, and it should be, and it is specifically a concern for me as well. And I don't know about you, but I'm wondering whether it's something that we all should be mindful of. So let me know what you think about all of this. Remember to subscribe to my channel, ring the bell for further notifications. Do you believe that we are moving further and further to the right? And should we be concerned?